Aquarius. There's a very strange moment when everything outside still feels exactly the same, but inside you, something begins to move. You can't really tell when it started. There's no clear point in time to look back on. It's just a passing feeling that somehow stays longer than you expected. You're still living your life as usual, still thinking, still being logical, still keeping that familiar distance. But somewhere in all of that, something is drawing your attention just a little more than before. A person, a presence, or simply a feeling that's hard to put into words. And what's interesting is, you're not rushing to find an answer. You just notice something within you is shifting in a very subtle way. No rush, no need to understand everything. Just a quiet current moving gently through you. And if you've ever felt something like this, then maybe you already understand what might be beginning. There are movements that don't need sound to exist, no clear signs for you to notice right away, no moment big enough to make you stop and say, "This is it. This is where everything changes." It's just something very subtle. So subtle that if you had been a little busier, you might have missed it. Like walking into a familiar space. Same light, same arrangement, everything exactly where it used to be. And yet, something feels different. Not outside, but within you. You can't name it, you can't explain it logically, but you know you're feeling something. And that feeling, in its own quiet way, is slowing you down. Not because you have to stop, but because a part of you wants to. Maybe it's the way you see someone now. No longer the same as before. No clear reason, no defining moment, just you begin to notice. Just a little. A glance that stays with you longer than usual. A simple sentence that lingers in your mind longer than it should. A presence that doesn't try, yet makes you feel at ease in a way you can't quite explain. For many people, this might seem ordinary, but for Aquarius, things usually need a reason. You're used to understanding before you allow yourself to feel. Used to observing, analyzing, and keeping just enough distance to stay grounded. Not because you're distant, but because you value clarity. You don't step into something unless you truly understand what it is. And maybe that's why this time feels different. It doesn't follow what you're used to. It doesn't wait for you to figure it out first. It doesn't ask for permission before slipping into your thoughts. It just is there, very subtle, but enough for you to notice. Maybe you tried to ignore it, told yourself it was just a passing feeling, but somehow it keeps returning, not loud, not demanding, just patient, like a soft breeze, not strong enough to disturb anything, but enough to let you know the air has shifted. And maybe what makes you pause isn't how intense the feeling is, but how it arrived. No need to prove anything, no need to convince you. It simply exists. You're not sure where this is leading, and you're not in a rush to find out. For the first time in a long while, you allow yourself not to understand everything right away. You let the feeling stay, even without a name. And maybe the moment you stop trying to control everything, is the moment something real begins. You've lived through so much, guided by your mind, not because you're afraid of emotions, but because you understand. Feelings can take you far, to places you're not always ready to enter. So you chose to observe first, to understand first, to keep just enough distance so you wouldn't lose yourself. You listen more than you speak. You notice what others overlook, and you always know when to step back. That's how you protect yourself. A very intelligent way, and a very familiar one. But this time, something isn't following those usual steps. There's no phase where you analyze enough before allowing yourself to feel. No clear line between what's safe and what's uncertain. It's just a feeling that appears before you even understand why. You didn't sit down and decide to feel something. There's no list of reasons to convince yourself. It arrives before thought. And what surprises you isn't that it showed up, but that you didn't rush to push it away. You notice you're not reacting the way you used to. You don't pull back right away. You don't try to explain everything from the start. Instead, you stay there with this feeling. Just a little longer, just a little, but enough to make a difference. There are small moments that you might have overlooked before, A message that makes you smile a little longer than usual. A pause in a conversation that somehow feels comfortable. A sense of familiarity, even though everything is still new. Nothing is completely clear, but it's no longer unfamiliar either. And you begin to realize some things don't need to be understood right away in order to exist. This feeling doesn't push you to change. It doesn't pull you out of your world. It simply appears within it, gently, filling small spaces. Spaces you once believed were already complete. It's not that you were missing anything, it's just you had never looked at those spaces this way. And now, you see they can be filled, not with urgency, but with presence. You're still you, still thinking, still observing, but something is shifting. You're no longer standing completely outside of your own emotions. You step a little closer, not to lose control, but to understand differently, in a way that doesn't need so many explanations. And maybe this isn't about the heart coming before the mind. Maybe, for the first time in a long while, the two of them are finally learning to listen to each other. And then, things don't change in any dramatic way. No clear turning point. No single morning where you wake up and realize, something in me is different now. It's just, small things begin to shift. So subtle that, if you're not paying attention, you might think everything is still the same. But you know, something is happening. The way you think about someone is no longer what it used to be. Not that you're thinking more, but you're thinking differently, less guarded, less distant, and sometimes softer. You begin to notice how you remember the smallest details, the way they say something simple, a habit you once wouldn't have cared about, a passing moment that lingers longer than it should. And sometimes you catch yourself waiting, not the kind of waiting that makes you impatient, not the kind that feels heavy or demanding, just a very gentle kind of waiting, like knowing a song you love is about to play again, and you don't have to do anything. Just stay there and listen. That alone might surprise you, because you've never been someone who enjoys waiting. You're used to owning your time, used to not letting other people's emotions affect you too much. But now, you realize you're not standing outside anymore. You're in it, naturally. And what's interesting is, nothing big has really happened. They don't have to do anything extraordinary. No perfect words, no impressive gestures. It's just their presence, there, steady, unforced, unpretentious. And somehow, that reaches you in a very deep way. Not as an overwhelming emotion, not as excitement that pulls you out of control, but something else, a feeling you can sit with, without needing to change anything, and still feel enough. Like finding a place where you don't have to try to belong. You just are, and that is enough. You begin to understand. Not every connection needs to be intense to be meaningful. Some things are very light and still last. Some feelings don't need to be loud and still stay for a long time. And maybe what stays with you isn't the question, is this right or not? But rather, why do I feel this calm? A kind of peace that doesn't come from everything being perfect, but from no longer having to hold yourself tight, to understand, to control, to keep your distance. You're just there, present, feeling, no explanation needed. And maybe this is the kind of change you never noticed before. It doesn't turn you into someone else. It simply brings you closer to who you already are, in a way that feels real, very subtle, but enough for you to know. This is no longer what it used to be. After everything that has unfolded so quietly, you begin to notice a familiar pattern in yourself. You want to name things, not to control them, but to understand, to know where you stand, to understand what this means, to see whether it's something worth continuing. You find yourself asking, what is this connection? Is this feeling real or just a passing moment? And if it is real, where is it going? Those questions are natural. They reflect the way you've always lived, with clarity, awareness, and a quiet refusal to get lost in uncertainty. But this time, something makes you pause before searching for answers. Not because you can't ask, but because you feel like you don't need to ask just yet. Some connections don't begin with definitions. They don't need a label. They don't need a promise from the start. They begin with something much simpler: presence. Someone being there without trying to make you feel comfortable, without trying to become a perfect version of themselves. They're just there, in a way that feels real enough for you to stop holding yourself so tightly. And you begin to realize this sense of safety isn't something you created. You don't have to analyze to feel at ease. You don't have to control to feel secure. It arrives naturally, soft, but clear. Like sitting next to someone where you don't need to say much, and yet you don't feel empty. There's no pressure to be interesting, no need to prove anything, just the quiet permission to be yourself. And that, for you, isn't always easy to find. Maybe that's why you begin to see things differently. Not everything needs to be understood right away in order to be appreciated. Not every feeling needs confirmation to have value. Some things just need to be felt in stillness, in patience, in the space you don't rush to fill with answers. You're no longer in a hurry the way you used to be. Not because you've lost your sense of clarity, but because you're learning to trust what hasn't been named yet. You allow yourself to stay with this feeling a little longer, not to hold on to it, but to listen, to see what it truly is, to see where it might lead, if it leads anywhere at all. And maybe, for the first time in a long while, you don't feel the pressure to figure everything out from the beginning. You just stay a little longer, a little, and sometimes it's in the space where you don't rush to define anything, that the most genuine things quietly begin to take shape. And then, after all those quiet moments, something within you begins to shift, in a very subtle way. Not a transformation, not becoming someone completely different. You're still you, still keeping the space you need, still thinking deeply, observing carefully, and not easily letting someone into your world. But somewhere, a layer of protection is beginning to soften, not breaking, not disappearing, just not as tight as it used to be. You start to notice you're sharing a little more, not big things, not the stories you've kept hidden for a long time, just small pieces, a passing thought, a feeling you would usually keep to yourself, a part of who you are that you never felt the need to show before. And what's different is, this time, it doesn't feel like a risk. There's no quiet worry about being misunderstood, no fear that you're giving too much. It's just, you want to share, naturally, like finding someone where even silence no longer feels heavy. And words don't need to be measured so carefully. You begin to understand. Opening your heart doesn't mean losing your independence. It's not about trading who you are just to keep a connection. Instead, it feels like you're allowing a more honest part of yourself to be seen. Not the version you prepared, not the version you think others would accept more easily, but you, with unfinished thoughts, unnamed feelings, and even the quiet spaces you once kept only for yourself. And what surprises you is, when you do this, nothing falls apart. Nothing becomes harder to control the way you once feared. If anything, you feel lighter, not because you gave something away, but because you're no longer holding it so tightly. There's a kind of freedom in that, small, but real. You don't have to try so hard to be understood. You don't have to explain everything perfectly. You just be yourself and let others feel it in their own way. And if they stay, not because you tried to become someone else, but because they recognize who you truly are, then that means something different. You begin to see the way you connect with the world in a new light, not through distance for safety, but through choice. Choosing who you allow yourself to open up to, in your own way. No rush, no need for many, just the right ones. And maybe what you're learning isn't how to love someone else. How to stop pulling yourself back too much when something meaningful stands in front of you. You're still you, but this time, you're no longer standing completely behind your walls. You step forward just a little, just enough to feel, to be present, and to allow something the chance to reach you in a way that feels real and entirely your own. And then, when you look back at everything you've just moved through, you begin to realize Not everything meaningful needs a big beginning. Love doesn't always arrive with clear signs. There isn't always a moment where you can say for sure, "This is it. This is what I've been waiting for." Sometimes, it's simply a presence arriving at the right time, not rushing into your life, not disrupting what you've carefully built. It just exists, very gently, so gently that you can still be yourself, still move through your days in the same familiar rhythm. And yet, somewhere, everything begins to carry a different kind of meaning. You don't lose control, you don't get swept away. It's just, you start seeing things through a different lens. A morning feels a little lighter. A long day doesn't feel as heavy. A quiet moment no longer feels empty. Not because your life has completely changed, but because the way you experience it has. And maybe what makes you pause isn't the question, "Where is this going?" It's not about finding a clear ending, it's about realizing you allowed yourself to feel again. After all the times you held back, after all the moments you chose to stand outside to protect yourself. This time, you didn't turn away. You didn't try to control every emotion. You didn't rush to define everything. You simply opened, not perfectly, not all at once, but honestly. And sometimes, what matters most isn't how long this will last, or what it might become. It's that it touched you, gently but deeply. It didn't turn you into someone else. It just brought you closer to who you already are. And maybe that's what you've been searching for all along. Not something outside of you, but something within. A feeling where you no longer have to close yourself off. And if you're still here, listening to this, maybe you've felt something like this too. You don't have to name it right away. You don't have to understand all of it. Just being honest with what you feel is enough. And if you are Aquarius, maybe your path doesn't need to be clear yet. It's enough that you're opening just a little more than you did before. This is because sometimes the quietest things are the ones that stay the longest. And maybe what you're feeling right now isn't an answer. Maybe it's a beginning in a way that is entirely your own.